The Cuban Missile Crisis was a 13-day standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union in October of 1962. The Soviet Union had put missiles in place on Cuba, only 90 miles away from the mainland US. The event was probably the closest the world ever came to nuclear war. But let's back up a bit and go to the beginning of our story. It was 1959, and the infamous Cuban revolutionary leader and now Prime Minister Fidel Castro allied with the Soviet Union. Cuba became reliant on the Soviets for both military and economic assistance. The USA and USSR were already deep in the Cold War at this time, and this only added to the tension. Fast forward a couple years. On October 14, 1962, Major Richard Hazer was piloting a U-2 spy plane over Cuba and photographed an SS-4 Soviet ballistic missile being assembled. Major Hazer later recalled that he worried that he would be remembered as the man who started a war. The next day, more missiles, launchers, and transports were spotted. On the 16th of the month, President Kennedy and a team of advisors weighed the nation's options. They knew that the weapons presence was not acceptable, and they must see to it that they were removed without the beginning of a larger conflict. It was decided to enact a naval blockade on Cuba and deliver an ultimatum to the Soviets that the missiles be removed. On October 22nd, John F. Kennedy notified Americans of the threat and announced the plan to block Soviet ships carrying weapons from reaching the island in a historic television address.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere.
Kennedy also came in contact with Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev at this time. The next day, Khrushchev replies insisting that the weapons are there only for defensive purposes. Kennedy replies by telling the Premier that he has started this crisis by placing the missiles in Cuba. Meanwhile, U.S. Ambassador and ex-governor of Illinois, Adlai Stevenson, explains the matter to the Security Council of the United Nations. More American ships move into the Caribbean, as do Soviet subs, ready for an attack. On October 24th, Khrushchev wrote to JFK saying, "You are no longer appealing to reason, but wish to intimidate us." On October 25th, the oil tanker Bucharest nears the quarantine zone. The USS Gearing and USS Essex get ready to intercept it, which could have started war. However, it is decided to allow the ship passage. October 26th, Fidel Castro contacts the Soviet premier, urging him to launch a nuclear attack on the United States. Khrushchev disregards the letter and contacts President Kennedy, asking to cooperate as to not doom the world to the catastrophe of thermonuclear war. October 27th, a U-2 pilot is shot down while flying over Cuba, and war seems imminent. Luckily, Kennedy came to the conclusion that the Soviet premier had not directly ordered the attack, which was a correct assumption. Both nations now realized how out of control the crisis had become. On this day, Khrushchev also demanded that the American missiles be removed from Turkey as part of the deal. Kennedy responded by stating that if the missiles in Cuba were removed, the United States would promise, quote, A, to remove promptly the quarantine measures now in effect, and B, to give assurances against an invasion of Cuba. Later in the day, JFK's brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy, met with a Soviet ambassador, telling him the US had planned to remove the missiles from Turkey, but did not want to say so publicly. On October 28th, Khrushchev contacted Kennedy, saying that the missiles in Cuba would be dismantled and withdrawn. Thus concluded the nearest the two world powers of the mid-20th century ever came to nuclear war. Thank you for watching. If you learned something, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. I will see you in the next one.